Right, so I covered a story the other day where 8 BBC journalists laid into their own bosses over their pro-Israel stance, their bias, taking their story to Al-Jazeera in order to do so, to ensure it was reported properly and not spun into something else, as our own media outlets would no doubt do. But equally, this has been reflected somewhat in Israel as well, with their newspaper Haaretz, who have been calling out Israeli atrocity, calling out the lies and exposing the truth. Journalists there more able to speak out freely than our own BBC, as it would appear. But appearances can be deceptive, as the Netanyahu regime is so unhappy that all of their lies are getting undone by one of their own newspapers, and they are invoking patriotism as the reasons why. Haaretz is being called unpatriotic by calling out what they're doing, but given that Haaretz is actually older than the state of Israel itself, can that even be an accusation that holds water? But besides which, governments should be held to account by their media. That's what a free and fearless press is all about, is it not? The fact this shutdown of Israel's longest running newspaper, or sanctions against it, appears to have legs to it, shows that Netanyahu and his regime have plenty to hide, and Haaretz exposing it is making them decidedly uncomfortable. Right, so Haaretz. I've used this newspaper as a source material in several of my recent videos on the ongoing atrocities out there, because it is credible. It does not bullshit like our media does, and just as Al-Jazeera have been doing a sterling job of exposing what is going on between Israel and Gaza from outside the involved territories. But Haaretz has been doing so from within. But that might be coming with a cost from their own government, who really don't like being held to account. They just are not used to it, you see. Now, the Israeli government is the most hard-right regime we've possibly ever seen in Israel. Netanyahu having done deals with far-right extremist parties to cobble together a coalition to stay in power and carry on as he has been. He's facing both his final permanent ousting from power as more and more Israelis stand against him, not to mention the news and Israel action being exposed day after day, week after week, and the propaganda alongside them gets shredded. And Haaretz has played no small part in that. They are a lefty liberal publication, so well to the left of Netanyahu, and have been in existence since 1918, which is longer than Israel's been around. But certainly making it the longest running Israeli publication in existence, and has the third largest newspaper circulation in Israel, behind the pro-Netanyahu free paper Israel Hayom and the tabloid Yedioth Arnaroth, I probably pronounced them horribly wrong, which is considered anti-Netanyahu, but only because it favours another right-winger, Zippy Livni, who was previously wanted for international arrest, no less, in connection with war crimes, which infamously, the Tory government of David Cameron bent the rules over to permit her to visit the UK in 2011, and they lent on the then Director of Public Prosecutions to not issue an arrest warrant for her, which of course he went along with. Following the Tories has become a career move of his, because it was of course at that time a certain Keir Starmer. Anyway, Haaretz is clearly the biggest non-brutal occupation anti-apartheid printed paper in Israel, and it is also produced in both Hebrew and English, which makes it more accessible to the rest of the world too, especially here in the West. To emphasise those anti-apartheid credentials and show why Netanyahu is really at the end of his rope with this paper, this is what senior journalist at the paper Gideon Levy said of his own country recently in relation to Palestine. He said, "I'm an Israeli. I was born in Israel. I even perceive myself as an Israeli patriot. I care about Israel. I belong in Israel. I'm attached to Israel. Don't speak about symmetry, because there is no symmetry. I would even suggest there is no conflict. Was there a French-Algerian conflict? There was a brutal French occupation in Algeria which came to its end, and there is no Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There is a brutal Israeli occupation which must come to an end one way or another. In our backyard there is a regime which is today by far one of the most cruel, brutal tyrannies on earth, and I know what I say because I've covered it for 40 years. And this regime cannot be defined but as an apartheid. Two peoples live on one piece of land. One people has all the rights in the world, and I am talking now only about the occupied territories. One people has all the rights in the world, the other people have no rights whatsoever. It looks like an apartheid, it talks like an apartheid, it is an apartheid, and nobody can contradict it." It's a powerful speech he gave, and you can see why Netanyahu might not be very keen on Haaretz, but I thought it interesting he defines himself as a patriot too, and as such, calling out his own country for wrongdoing instead of turning a blind eye or encouraging more of it is how he chooses to demonstrate his love for his country, because he can see what it is doing. He knows it is wrong. The whole world can see it is wrong, and it's an embarrassment to world leaders across the globe who are saying otherwise, who deny that Israel is an apartheid state, and that it is a magnifying glass both Sunak and Starmer here are guilty of being firmly under. The final straw for Netanyahu, and it's quite understandable from his warped perspective, is that Haaretz exposed to the world the involvement of the IDF in the killings of large numbers of people at the Nova Music Festival and in the nearby kibbutzes, such as Be'eri kibbutz, where footage of an Apache helicopter, US made of course, gunning down people who were clearly at the music festival and then later killing anyone who tried to leave the kibbutzes, another Hannibal directive to prevent hostages being taken, presumably. But it wasn't all Hamas doing all of the killing. In fact, the music festival was an event Hamas weren't apparently aware of and screwed their plans up, in fact. Ultimately, it was these events, solely blamed on Hamas at the time as they were, which have been the justification for Israel to carry out all of the attacks on Gaza ever since, driving people south and killing or wounding more than 50,000 people to date. One of their own newspapers exposing their own part in killing those people, their own people. Well, that's awkward, isn't it? Well, following that, Israeli communications minister has now sought to place sanctions on Haaretz, basically, for being unpatriotic, as they say. A very different version of patriotism, clearly, to that of Gideon Levy. Patriotism to this Israeli government is to do what it likes, kill and maim and mistreat with impunity, behave every bit like the occupying apartheid state that they are, shielded by their friends in the West, too many of them, as we are now well aware of, dumbed down by too many in the media, but those outlets that can get the real news out there, harnessing the power of social media to do so. Well, things have changed now. People aren't buying into it. If you clamp down and sanction Haaretz, if you try to close them down, it will only be seen for the mercenary Zionist doctrine you follow being followed, and the apartheid that goes hand in hand with it, and it will not change minds or attitudes, which are hardening against Israel. And with a ceasefire currently supposedly in place, questionable when Israel broke it within an hour, any further acts to clamp down on free speech will be seen as a big right-wing baby throwing its toys out of the pram, because finally some accountability is being applied. But it will nowhere near be enough until Netanyahu and those in his ministry, and those formerly in his ministries, such as the aforementioned Zippy Livni, have their day in The Hague, on trial for war crimes they are sorely overdue being held accountable for. Media outlets like Haaretz are a rare source of truth for what is happening in Gaza right now and what Israel is actually doing rather than what they claim to be doing, because there's a gulf of difference. Sanctioning them for holding you to account is not going to go well for you, BB. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on this story in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, there's a video recommendation where the kind of thing Israel does want promoted is their kids singing for more genocide, apparently. I remember singing hymns as a kid. I thought having to do that was bad enough. This is much worse. But again, systematic of the way Israel is run by appalling people, an apartheid state that celebrates the fact as long as they don't get criticised for it. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.